Welcome back to Nigeria 54, Path to Nationhood, and well, next we'll be joined by Chief Richard Akinjide, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He was also a delegate at the national conference. Yes, we'll be analyzing the president's speech. He joins us in Lagos. And good evening, and thank you for joining us today, Chief. But well, I could just take a moment and let's listen to this report, which sets the scene about the president's address earlier on today, and then we'll be back to get your comments on it.
Nigeria has faced many challenges since attaining nationhood. Perhaps the most frightening yet is the fight against insurgency in the northeastern states.
Let me go back.
So it may have come as no surprise to many Nigerians when the president began his 54th independence anniversary address with words of sobriety because of a situation he refers to as a crisis of nationhood occasioned by the activities of terrorists.
To fight and win this war.
President Goodluck Jonathan took time to remind Nigerians that terrorists don't mean well for anyone and asked for a collective effort to fight terrorism. He also appears not to have thrown away the option of dialogue.
Those waging war against our country ask that you lay down your arms and embrace peace. To those who have genuine grievances, I have found that Nigeria will listen to you if you bring your grievances to the table of dialogue. I urge every Nigerian to put aside political, sectional, or other parochial considerations and support wholeheartedly the efforts of the government and the military in checking this evil.
It may be a major problem threatening the nation's development, but insurgency is just one of the many issues that need attention, and Dr. Goodluck Jonathan highlighted this fact in his speech about the national conference where Nigerians came together to attempt to solve some of the nation's myriad of problems. The president gave assurance that the confab recommendations will be implemented.
I made the commitment that we will act on the recommendations of the conference. This I have started by setting up the ministerial committee headed by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation to work out the modalities for implementing the report. Every promise I make, God willing, I'll see to its fulfillment. I assure you, we shall implement the report.
One success story the president could not but mention is how the country was able to contain the Ebola virus disease. The president was full of praise for the resilience shown by every Nigerian in ensuring the disease did not spread like in other West African states affected by the EVD. The 2015 general election is another major event that Nigerians are looking forward to, and as many continue to join the race for elective positions, the biggest being the presidential seat, President Goodluck Jonathan says he is committed to delivering free and fair elections.
Our administration has made a commitment to ensure that we build and sustain a democratic infrastructure anchored on free and fair elections. We will continue to ensure that the will of the electorate prevails, so that political leaders will be reminded that at all times that there is a day of reckoning when they have to go back to the people at the polls. Election days must not be days of violence and death.
He concluded his speech with words of encouragement and the need for unity amongst all Nigerians.
As we look forward to another year in our national life, I am more than confident that our tomorrow will be better than our yesterday and today.
Sheung Okimbaloye, Channels Television News.
Well, so there we have a background of the president's speech, a summary by our correspondent Sheung Okimbaloye there. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening, Chief. Perhaps we should start off talking about the national conference. Well, yes, the president did say that that committee that he has set up, which is headed by the Attorney General, will ensure that the recommendations of that conference are implemented. Let's get your perspective on that, because there are those who have said, first of all, what is the legal backing? And they also think that, yes, the conference may have come and gone, but they still don't see where it will be anchored on in terms of the laws that will back it. What do you think about that?
Well, the conference was excellent. And I have the privilege of being a member of that conference. It lasted 3 or 4 months. And we've already submitted a report to Mr. President. And the President has set up a committee of 5 or 6 for the implementation of our report. In my view, this is one of the best reports on such matters that has ever been prepared in the history of this country. I had the privilege of being in Parliament before independence, at the time of independence, and also after independence. And I also had the privilege of being Federal Minister of Education under Prime Minister Alhaji Tafawa Balewa before I became Attorney General under Alhaji Shehu Shagari. In my view, all those governments did extremely well, and I say that with the greatest sense of responsibility. But the present government has been doing also extremely well. I've been following what they have been doing in government, in the papers, on television, in the radio, and in the books. And when the history of this country comes to be written, I think their names will be written in the letters of gold. I support what they are doing, and I hope that everybody in the country will also support them, so that we can go from silver to gold and also to diamond.
Well, it's quite an interesting perspective that you have there, because we're speaking with Mr. Robert Clark this morning, and we were asking him about the syndrome of the good old days. You know, how elderly people or people who are possibly in their 50s and above have the general perspective that the olden days, if you prefer, were a lot better than what we're experiencing currently. Yet you say leadership at that time did extremely well, and leadership today is also doing extremely well. What exactly is wrong, or what is causing the disconnect we seem to be feeling?
Well, I did not listen to our great old man you mentioned, so it is not competent for me to comment or not to comment of what he said or what he did not say. But if you want to analyze the history of this country, you've got to be extremely careful, and you've got to be analytical, and you have to go into history. I will go back to our history starting from 1880, 1882, 1883, the conference by the European powers, which created what you now call the African states. And then you must move there to the problem we have in Benin. You know, Benin was an independent state with relations with Portugal, with Senegal, and also with Brazil and a number of other countries. We moved there to the Great War against Benin. And you remember there were 2 wars. In the first war, the Kingdom of Benin conquered the British. There is no doubt about that, and these are supported by books. The British went back, and they came back with a bigger fleet of ships. There were no aeroplanes at that time. It was ship and ships and ships in those days. And in a bloody war, they were able to conquer Benin, and the Oba of Benin was taken to Calabar, where he later died at 1913, 1914, or 1915. Now, if you look at the issue of that period, you will say that Nigeria is not just a lame state. Nigeria was a very great state which had the respect and the support of international community at that time. And of course, the critical period was when Lugard came in. You know, Lugard was a colonial civil servant in the Far East. From there, he was moved to East Africa and eventually came to Nigeria around before 1900. That was a critical period in the history of this country. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we have two presidents ruling this country. The first one was Lugard, may I say from 1900 to 1914, when we have southern Nigeria, which was quite different from northern Nigeria. And of course, Lugard was the ruler of the two. Then we have the critical amalgamation of 1914, which again was very important. And of course, all the minerals of Nigeria were amalgamated and vested in the British Crown. And that is very critical in the issue of this country. When I say all the minerals, that includes oil and gas. They also enacted the criminal law, which was imported from Australia, and one or two other things, including the Arbitration Act. So Lugard remained for a few years later before he went away, and then another colonial master came in. So if you look at the issue of this country, the first era was created and ruled by one whom I will call the colonial rulers. That is Lord Lugard, then the chairman of the Royal Niger Company, and then Lord Harcourt. Lord Harcourt was then the colonial secretary. And Port Harcourt now is named after him. Okay. That was the people who created this country you call Nigeria. And of course, we moved on. We didn't stop there. And then we have people who got independence for us. Those who got independence for us, of course, you know, Zeke's name has to be written in letters of gold, and I put him as number one. And of course, you also have Sadana, you have Balewa, Chief Obamefe Awolowo, S.L. Akitola, Okpara, Osadebe, and a number of other leaders who got independence for us. So if you look at the issue of this country, you've got to look at it from two angles. One, those who created Nigeria, and two, those who got independence for us. So
Chief,
if you write the
just a moment,
history of this...
If I may come in quickly, I was just going to ask you, you know, because you had the privilege of serving in parliaments before Nigeria got its independence in 1960, and you also served in governments after independence as well. Would you say that the Nigeria of that time is very different from the Nigeria of now in terms of the outlook of the people, the standard of living? Or do you feel that, you know, we used to have the good old days back then and we don't have them anymore? I was trying to get your comment on whether that's just nostalgia or whether indeed we have moved forward as a people.
I would not say they are the same. They are totally different. The independence we have before independence was quite different from the independence we have after independence. And of course, you remember we went through 3 years of civil war, which was terrible, bloody, and many people died. And after that, we have a number of military coups. And the military coups we had in this country were, only one was the one in which the military overthrew the civilians. And of course, the second one in which Alhaji Shehu Shagari was overthrown. Otherwise, all the military coups we had were military overthrowing the military. On the whole, I will say that Nigeria has done extremely well. It is not easy to write the history of Africa. If you look at all of Africa, the economic power of Africa is in the hand of the Europeans. I mean, let's us face it. Don't let us deceive ourselves. Although we are trying our best now to make sure that the economic powers are in the hand of Africans who are de facto rulers. But in my view, we still have a long way to go. We have not got there yet. If you look at the power of the Asians have done much better than the Africans. And the